right. Hello and welcome to Kankakee Podcast, where we talk about the people and places of Kankakee County. I'm Jake Lamore, and this is a continuation of our Meet the Mayor series, where we sit down with all the different mayors in Kankakee County. And the next one up is Mayor Paul Schore from the village of Bourbonnais. Welcome, Mayor.
Yeah, glad to be here. I've never done a podcast before, so this is going to be interesting.
I mean, I love that this is your first podcast because it's perfectly centered in what you've been doing for the last, we were just talking how long you've been mayor. Yeah. Now it's been 15 years, right? So this is just a simple, down-to-earth conversation, just getting to know you and more about your story before becoming mayor, and then even, during that, because 15 years is a long time.
Yep. Yeah, so, I've been on the board 25, so I was a trustee first and then mayor after that. So where does your family come from? Are you part of the original families that came and migrated here? No, I wouldn't say we're old Bourbonnais, although my father grew up over in the Morocco, Indiana area, and my mom was raised and went to school in the city of Kankakee. And after they were World War II generation folks. And they got married a little later than normal at that time. They were in their 30s before they got married, and they decided to build a house out in Bourbonnais on River Street, which was kind of a tar and chip road at the time that dead-ended at Maternity Cemetery, and that was kind of the end of the line for everything in Bourbonnais at the time. So we've been in Bourbonnais for a long, long time, but no, they weren't one of the original French families that were there. Although my mom has some French heritage in her. So how did your parents meet then? If your dad was from Morocco and your mom was from Kankakee? Yes.
Right?
Well, after the war, my dad was he was in the Navy, and my mom worked at the airplane plant up in Chicago with the old Dodge plant that they built to build the engines for the B-29s. And she ended up coming back to Kankakee where her parents were, and my dad came to the Kankakee area. He had a sister that lived here once he got out of the service, and got a job here in town. And they met and got married. So,
So, is that house still in the family on River there?
No, it's not. Unfortunately, my dad passed away a number of years ago. My mom just passed away last June, but we ended up having to sell the house, and it bothered me because I kind of wanted to keep it, but none of the kids really needed a house at the time, and I didn't really need a different house. And but it was a house that he had, like a lot of guys in that era did. I mean, a lot of them, their down payment was their sweat equity in the house, and so he helped build the house along with Toby Benoit, and who was a builder at the time. And so Toby really knew what he was doing. My dad was a truck driver. He could pound a nail, but he was not a carpenter, as it were.
He didn't know things necessarily went. Yeah, if you told him where it went, he would.
And he was
put
okay.
It there. Yeah.
He was okay doing that. So
was it one of those? Wasn't one of those Sears warehouses like a build-a-kit?
No, it wasn't quite that. Although it was my mom picked the floor plan out of the Chicago Tribune. They used to run house plans and stuff in there, a house of the week kind of thing and whatever. So it was a floor plan she took out of there. And just a basic kind of 3-bedroom ranch on a basement with a single car garage, and had a breezeway on it, and somehow convinced my dad to paint it flamingo red. So we always gave people directions to the house by it's a red house on River Street, you can't miss it, and everybody knew where we lived.
So are you an only child then, or do you have siblings?
I had a sister. She was just 10 and a half months older than me, so she was barely a little older than me. We were in separate grades. We were almost in the same grade, but we were in separate grades, and so just her and I. And so the four of us enjoyed living in the house. It was the Surrogate Police Department at the time. My father was the police chief, which was very much a part-time job. He drove a truck full time for Rogers Cartage, and but he would go into work very early, driving at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. So he would get off at around 2 or so, or whatever, and then he would take over the police duties. But there was no police department. In fact, the police phone was in our house. And
wow,
I don't want to say it was Mayberry, but it was close. And so
was your dad Barney or was he Andy?
He was Andy. And so if the phone would ring and my mom would answer, and she was the surrogate, unofficial, unpaid dispatcher then at the time. And if it was something that could wait till my dad got home from his regular job, he would. If not, then they would go to county. Or if nobody was home and it rang after a third or fourth ring, county would pick it up and then come out. But it was, it was a much smaller community and simpler time at the time,
So you've always known what's been happening in Bourbonnais.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, it was. But growing up in that era in Bourbonnais, it was a very small community, and but it was nice. You knew everybody. You knew all the families. You knew all the kids. Everybody knew everybody, and it was a great place to grow up. It really was.
So that would have been what, the 1960s?
Yeah, I was born in '55, so and there was we started school in the early '60s. Went to maternity BVM. Well, started out at St. Stanislaus in Kankakee here because they had a kindergarten. Maternity didn't have a kindergarten at the time. And so we were the first class to go through what was all the new school at the time. Before that, the kids all went to school at the convent. And then the current maternity, or Bishop McNamara now, grade school got built. So we were the first ones to start in first grade and go through all 8 grades there.
Yeah.
So it was a fun time.
So at the time that was that a volunteer position that your dad was as police chief?
Yeah,
or was
it paid virtually nothing. The old story went is my dad they would go to village board meetings, and Leon Blanchette was mayor at the time, and of course they all knew each other or whatever. And my dad didn't show up for a meeting one night, and so they made him the police chief.
When he wasn't there.
When he wasn't there.
Oh my gosh!
Congratulations! So I still got his little badge, a little card signed by Leon Blanchette. He was police chief.
That's like the whole bit when they ask, okay, someone step forward to volunteer, and then everyone takes a step back, and then the one person that's left that didn't take a step back is the one that gets volunteered.
So the police department has grown a lot since then, obviously. But
how many are on even since you've been in office?
I mean, it's grown some. There's 26, 28 sworn officers now, and we can always use a few more.
What was the population of Bourbonnais back then?
Back then it was about 900, 1,100, somewhere in there.
Now you're starting to push 20. You're getting close to 20.
Well, it depends on which version of the census you want to go by. The census was so horribly done this last go around. We're going to end up having to do a special census because we figure we're off about at least 1,500 to 1,800 people that they did not count.
Which would put you at almost 20.
We were just under 20.
Yeah, because right now it's 18,200 or something like that? Yeah. How long was your father then the police chief?
It was for a few years. I don't really recall. It was it got to the point where they actually started to have to hire some people full time and whatever, and of course that my dad wasn't going to necessarily do that. He's a Teamster trucker, and that's what he did for a living, and so he stopped doing that at that point. He was kind of involved with their auxiliary, that kind of thing, for a while, but. I enjoyed it while I was there,
Yeah. All right. Is there any stories in particular you can remember from that time, some of the calls you got?
I probably the most prevalent one I can recall is when the tornado came through Bourbonnais and came through between Maternity BVM Church and Olivet, and did quite a bit of damage throughout the whole area. It was on the ground for a long time. Fortunately, there was only one fatality. But there was an area in Olivet at that time. It was kind of a trailer park kind of area that I think it was kids that were doing graduate studies or were married students and whatever would live there. And of course, for some reason, trailers and tornadoes just don't work out. And so it tore that up pretty bad. So my dad kept bringing people home to our house because there was no place for them to go. And we kind of set up a makeshift dormitory in the basement, and then the neighbor ladies come over to help my mom cook, and they were making big pots of spaghetti and macaroni and cheese and hot dogs and whatever to kind of get everybody situated for a day or two till there was someplace for them to go. And the WGN news people were at our house, and they decided they'd come over there for coffee, and my mom to feed them, and She made the WGN guys give her copies of the film that they were shooting because, of course, they were shooting film at that time. It was back in that day there was no video. I mean, they were shooting 16 millimeter stuff then.
I was just going to say it was probably 16.
And then convinced them too that they had to break it down to 8 millimeters so she could show it on her little movie projector. So they did. About a month later, we got all the videos back from the tornado stuff. So
do you still have those?
I do. I have that stuff.
That's amazing.
I probably need to put it on something else because I'm sure it's going to deteriorate after a while after what you hear what's going on with regular, because it's on regular film.
Right. Yes. So. And even in proper storage, it still only lasts so long. But yeah, as long as you keep it in a good regulated temperature area, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's just some of it all went on, in the town,
right.
As the town started to grow.
And that was really where the tornado was. That really, in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't far from where you lived at the time, because River Street or River Lane.
My dad was home, and a lot of times he would, when he would get home, he would lay down for a little bit because he had been out since 3 o'clock in the morning, and before he would start doing any kind of police things or whatever. My mom woke him up because the storm coming through, and of course we didn't have the warning systems and all those kinds of things back then when there was a tornado or something. And he kind of looked out the window. He said, "Oh, it's just a dust storm. It's not nothing." Well, then about 5 minutes later, the police phone started ringing, and it didn't quit ringing for a day, I don't think, just, because there was a lot of people really lost their houses and things. And fortunately, not like I say, there was only one fatality, and it was almost a miracle. That's all there was. So.
Yeah. I feel like in your childhood, just what I'm learning right now and some of the things I already know, I feel like you saw so much history from a child until now. The next thing I can think of, I know in your childhood, was you got to see the log schoolhouse as a kid, the French log schoolhouse, right?
Well, of course, a lot of the people that lived in Bourbonnais at the time were obviously descendants of the Canadian French that had moved into the area, and of course, consequently, all the last names and things, and in fact, even the street names and stuff. A lot of the street names and stuff in the old part of Bourbonnais are either priests from Saint Viator's, or they're French family names that were throughout the area. So yeah, there was a number of those things. Like in that house, we knew that part of it had some log stuff in it, but we didn't think too much about it at the time. It was, it was like, oh, okay, so not a big deal. And but circling back around, it was something that fortunately, with the help of a lot of people that I convinced we needed to get involved in that project, we were able to save that and keep it, because those are one-shot deals. You either save those things at the time it's happening, or they're gone forever. And I really wanted people to have an idea of what it was like to grow up on the prairie here in Illinois in those days. And a lot of the people that first came here, I mean, they didn't speak English, they didn't do anything. They came here because they had heard that there was good land, and they wanted to come here and farm and raise a family. And so it was opportunity for them, like a lot of people throughout the country at that time when there was the mass movement through out to the west. So it's a little piece of history that we plan on running a lot of school kids through and get them an idea of what it was like to to go to school in the 1830s, 1840s, when it was a privilege to go to school. You didn't always get to go to school. In fact, school wasn't always there all the time. Sometimes it would be in blocks. They would have teachers come through at 6 or 8 weeks at a time, and then move on. And if you got your chores done on the farm, and if the weather was okay, and if everything else was all right, well, then you got to go to school. And as opposed to what it is now. So just give an idea what it was like back then for their forefathers.
Yeah. So we're talking about the 1837 log schoolhouse.
Yeah.
It's right next to the
Laterno home.
Thank you. The Laterno home in Bourbonnais. You can stop by and see it. It's not open to the public as of the day we're recording this, but I know that's still in the process.
It has hours, and the Bourbonnais Grove Society helps manage that and staff that and do a fabulous job doing all that and archiving things. And they're just a bunch of very, very dedicated people that do that. And we're appreciative of them handling that kind of thing. So they're very much into it.
Yeah, and I would imagine for you, though, knowing about that as a kid, or maybe did you even see that log schoolhouse? Because the story, you can probably tell the story better than I can, is this log schoolhouse was essentially inside a house that was built around it.
Yeah, it got encapsulated, as it was a schoolhouse really only for a little over 9 years, and then it became a number of different things. It was a blacksmith shop, and it became a residence. And over the years, the base of it stayed there, and they added on to it a few times. They cut the whole back open, and to make that a walkthrough and do it into an addition, and put an addition onto the top of it. And but in the meantime, the perimeter of the base of the original house was still the logs, and it had kind of almost a hand dug basement underneath of it. And as you went down the basement stairs, you could see the logs. They were just right there, and of course that was at the end. That was Red and Mary Marcotte's house, and it had quite a story in itself. Realistically, it was falling into disrepair, and they really just couldn't continue to maintain it anymore. And I'll be honest with you, I was afraid it was going to burn down or something was going to happen to it and it would be lost forever. And so I tried to work with the family, and we ended up coming together to where the village bought the house, and with the help of Dale Pigosh, really, from PSI, I had him come over and take a look at this. And I knew Dale was an old River Street kid too, just like I was, and he grew up two blocks from this house, and he knew all about this house too. And I said, Dale, I don't have much money here, I'm telling you, but we've got a project here that I just can't let go. And I don't expect you to do it from nothing, but I need some help on this one and whatever. And being an old Bourbonnais kid too, they dismantled the thing and surgically removed all the logs and tagged them, and we had to store them for quite a while because we didn't have the money to put it back up. And as we were trying to get grants and donations and all those kinds of things, and
because that happened in 2010. Right, 2011,
probably
when the house was being demolished.
Yeah, and it took a number of years to put enough money together to be able to resurrect it, as it were. And then we still had to get more logs. There was, of course, logs that weren't usable or were missing, and so again, with the help of PSI, they were able to find those, and Joe Crabtree found those through a connection he had, and it's like a lot of projects. It takes a lot of people and a lot of hands and a lot of good folks out there that have done a lot of great things for the village. So that was just one of them, and now it's there. Now we just need to maintain the thing, and but the public's got something to look at. This is what it used to be.
So for high school, then, did you end up going to like Bishop McNamara, or was BBCHS around yet?
Oh, no, BBCHS, definitely was there. And most of the kids that were graduated in my class from fraternity, for whatever reason, a lot of them went to Bradley High School rather than going to going to Bishop McNamara. I don't know exactly why. My sister had graduated the year before, and she went to BBCHS, so that's where I went too. And it was a culture shock for me, to be honest with you. Their first 3 or 4 months there at the high school. Of course, it was a much, much bigger school. I came out of maternity in a class of, I think there was a little over 30 of us in the same classroom, and we went all through grade school together. I'm actually probably closer with a lot of the kids I went to grade school with than the ones I went to high school with, because, you went through 8 years with them.
Yeah.
And I was just surprised at the demeanor of the kids and how they treated teachers and those kinds of things. It was different. It was a little different. It took some getting used to, as it were.
Yeah, you were probably used to the ruler stick, that everyone always jokes about with the nuns.
Yeah,
or the yardstick.
Yeah, and I can't really say that went on there, but you didn't disrespect the nuns. You just didn't do that. God help you if you did it when you got home. You were in so much trouble at that stage. It's just, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
Now, by the time at maternity, we got into 7th or 8th grade, there was, we got, your junior high age, and of course, you know a lot and do whatever. We got a little boisterous from time to time, and sometimes the nuns would just kind of throw their hands up and send us over to talk to Father, and we'd have to go talk to him over at the priest house, But fortunately, we were his star altar boys and whatever at the same time. So he tried to just counsel us. Now boys, the good sisters are just trying to do what they can do, and just need to behave. Okay, Father, yeah, we'll be good, And we'd watch the end of an inning of the Cubs game with him in the afternoon. We were over there supposedly getting punished, and then he'd send us back over, and we'd be okay for a while.
That's great. Yeah. You go to get punished, you end up watching the Cubs.
Yeah.
What a punishment, unless you're a White Sox fan or a Cardinals fan.
Yeah.
So after you graduate high school, where does life take you then?
Well, I had in high school, I got a job at Mr. Steak, which was a restaurant there in Meadowview subdivision, or Meadowview shopping center, that a neighbor was the manager of at the time. So I worked there through high school and whatever. And then upon graduation, I decided to quit. And then a very close friend of mine, Scott Raymond, and I decided we wanted to go out west on a great adventure. So we borrowed my dad's station wagon and as a graduation present, and Scott's dad gave us his Texaco credit card to buy gas with, and which was about 39 cents a gallon at the time, I think. And we headed out west on our 4 or 5 week excursion out there to see the West, as it were, and went through the Badlands and down to Rocky Mountain National Park and back up through the Tetons and Yellowstone and Glacier National Park on the border. And we kind of wanted to go into Canada, but they weren't that crazy about letting young guys into Canada at that point in time. The draft had ended from the war, but there was had been such an influx of young guys from America trying to avoid the draft going there that at the border they didn't tell you couldn't go in, but
they were skeptical.
They were very skeptical, so we didn't try it. So then we headed on across to Seattle, and then all along the coast, all the way down on 101 or whatever that is, down to Los Angeles, and we camped most of the time at all the national parks and stuff. Stayed in hotels a little bit. Went to, especially like when we got to Los Angeles and stuff. Went to see some of the game shows get filmed and that at Universal Studios. It was kind of interesting. And went to the Johnny Carson show. And of course,
you actually were a part of the audience?
Well, yeah, we were at the Carson show. Yeah,
That's
and
cool.
Unfortunately, Johnny was sick that night, and Joey Bishop was the was the guest host or whatever.
Man.
And I think because we had grown up watching Johnny Carson, we were very disappointed about that.
No.
But Ed McMahon was there, and Doc Severs, of course, and all that. So that was it was interesting. It was fun.
Yeah,
didn't cost anything. So what the heck,
Mm-hmm. You probably had to stand in line.
Yeah, and we got them through Universal Studios when we went on the Universal Studios tour there.
Okay,
and so we had a good time. Then worked our way back through the Southwest and ended up back home in Bourbonnais.
So then you get home after this grandiose road trip. Did it give you any great ideas on what you wanted to do?
No. I got back, didn't have a clue what I wanted to do or whatever, and my folks decided it was a great idea for me to sign up for KCC, so I signed up for some gen ed type classes at the beginning, just general college classes or whatever. And
shout out to KCC.
Managed to get a job at A.O. Smith at the time, which was I went from making a whole, I think, $1.60 an hour working at Mr. Steak to $5 an hour working at A.O. Smith.
That's a big jump.
Like I hit the lottery. Oh my gosh! I had more money than I ever dreamed of, and started out at KCC and was taking those, like I say, just general curriculum classes, and decided I didn't really care for those two very much, and so I continued to work at A.O. Smith and got laid off there for a period of time when Harvester moved out and went to DeKalb, and they had some layoffs.
Was that in the 70s?
Yeah. So then I got a job within a week or two at Swift, which was then became Bunge, and of course at that time jobs were fairly plentiful. We hadn't really hit the hard times in the area yet, and so I went to work there, and then started back out of KCC taking VOTEC classes, and got into the refrigeration department there, and Bill Stearns was teaching that, and he was probably another one of my mentors, I guess we could say, and he reminded me so much of my grandfather, and the way he talked and taught and everything, and I enjoyed that and learned a lot, and started out ended up going in the refrigeration industry. So that's really what I did for a career.
So in refrigeration, what exactly are you doing?
Well, what I did then at that time, I was still working at Swift, and I had a partner, Vince Monticelli, that he was working there too, and we decided to. Of course, there was some new housing going on, so he and I decided to start putting some furnaces and air conditioners in and stuff, and some of all the new housing, and we did that, and so we kept kind of doing those almost on the side, and pretty soon we had a business going that we didn't realize. It wasn't a big business, but it was a business.
What was the name of the business?
It was M&S Refrigeration at the time. And we stayed together quite a while, and then things weren't quite business-wise going in a direction I really kind of wanted things to go in, and by that time, of course, the area was going through some really, really tough times. We lost A.O. Smith, we lost Ropers, we went through the whole crunch from the Rust Belt and all the industry moving down south, and the economy here was very, very tough. I mean, unemployment was high, interest rates were high, and it was a tough time. But we managed to struggle through and still hang in there, and then eventually, then I went to work for was Armor Pharmaceutical at the time, CSL Bearing, and I stayed there. I was planning on really just kind of going for the winter and doing something else in the spring, and then 27 years later, I retired from there. So you just never know sometimes what avenue takes you where,
Yeah.
So that's what I did at CSL. Is I worked in their maintenance department doing refrigeration work.
Okay, so you were making sure areas were adequate temperatures and things like that.
Well, they have a lot of very interesting equipment there because it's a pharmaceutical business, and in all kinds of facets, really, and especially in refrigerations too. I mean, they have some ultra low stuff that's 100 below zero, and a lot of large freezers and coolers and all those kinds of things. So there's plenty of stuff to work on.
So you were,
and it was interesting because a lot of the equipment you would never ever see in the freeze dryers unless you were probably in another pharmaceutical business. I mean, other than that, you'd never run across this equipment.
When did you retire from CSL?
Well, I retired about 2.5 years ago.
Okay,
something like that. And I was still working there full time, and then also the mayor position, which is technically supposed to be a part-time job, but I'll be honest with you, it's not a part-time job anymore. No. It's not. And hopefully I'll be the last of the part-time mayors that they decide to make it more a full-time position. It really needs to be. I mean, or you're going to be asking people to only be retired people that are going to be able to do it, because you just, you can't work a full-time job and do it. They're not do it right.
Yeah. And I mean, with the way Bourbonnais is growing, it would be really hard to continue that as a part-time position, because what the bigger it gets, the more responsibilities usually, right?
Well, that's it. Yeah. I mean, now granted, we have village administrator and all that stuff, but still, you need the mayor needs to be at so many meetings and things during the day and in the evening. And, it's just, it's 30, 40 hours a week, easy, currently now. And that's just going to increase. You're on so many different committees and things involving things at the county, and
you're here right now.
Well, yeah, it's just so it's if you were trying to work a full-time job someplace, it'd be almost impossible, especially if you didn't even work in the area. I mean, there's a lot of people work up north and commute, and I mean, there's no way you could do that. I mean, it'd be impossible.
Yeah. So where does your career then in politics begin? When did you first become? Was being a trustee the first?
Yeah.
Your first experience?
Yeah.
Or were you doing some things before then?
Well, I mean, as a kid, my dad was always somewhat involved in politics and whatever, at least in the Bourbonnais area. And I used to get drug out to put out signs with him on Saturdays and stuff and whatever. So I was around it. I didn't think the whole lot of it, but I was around it. Probably the first one I remember was getting Larry Hildebrand elected sheriff in Kankakee County. That was my first go around, because I used to cut Larry's dad's grass. So I mean, it was just kind of the way things went. But I had been gotten back involved with scouting again as my sons grew up and came in. So I was running the Cub Scout program there as a Cub Master, and then moved on up to work in the Boy Scout troop. But I think I was still with the Cub Scouts at the time. And Grover Brooks approached me. He was had been elected, and he was getting ready to go through a second campaign for a second term in office, and they needed a couple of people to run for trustee, and he approached myself and Vera Amiano, who I had known for years and years, to the Bank of Bourbonnais, and we were friends. And so that the two of us kind of convinced ourselves, well, if you'll do it, I'll do it. And and then we were off, and it was a fairly contentious campaign at the time. Things got a little ugly, not so much involving myself and Vera as it was dealing with the mayoral candidates at the time, and it wasn't pretty, and I almost wondered what I was getting myself into. But
was this in the 80s?
Yeah, this would have been in the it would have been about 87, somewhere in there. And
so, what made it so contentious then? With the mayoral,
there was some political upheaval going on. Grover had beat the then sitting Mayor Terry Vaughn, who had run for re-election and lost, and there was some bad blood going on there, and then there was some campaigning that kind of got personal with involving some of the candidates, and which is never a good thing. And fortunately, at the end of it, I guess when it's done, and it's over with. And that's why I'll be honest with you, I don't really like politics. I'm probably the least political person you're probably ever going to meet.
But here you are.
I just
maybe that's why you're in the position you're in.
Well, maybe, I don't know. That's why I could kind of always run as an independent party. I don't run as a Republican or a Democrat. I have friends and colleagues that I think a lot of that are great elected officials, and some are Republicans, some are Democrats, and that's okay with me. I'm more about the person than the party, and so that's kind of the way I like to try and keep it.
And I think that says a lot about why you've been in office.
Yeah, that could be. It's just whenever you got politics involved, you get drama, and I I don't have time for the drama. Let's just do the right thing. Can we just do whatever the right thing is and for the right reasons? And generally, if you'll try and do that, you'll be okay at the end of the day. And some of the political maneuvering and things, and then we've got some of that going on in the county now, and it's like. I don't know. Maybe I don't have time for all that. It's like, let's.
I'm too busy.
Let's work on the task at hand and try and do a job for the taxpayers. That's who you work for. I mean, it's for the people you run into at the grocery store, the ones you run into at church. I mean, we're all we're elected officials at ground zero. You're there with the public and whatever, and they're responsible to them. And they come by your house. I mean, it's just, you're there, So
yeah, we were just talking about that off mic.
Well, yeah, that's it's what I call curbside government. When I'm cutting the grass, people pull up sometimes and just kind of roll the window down and say, I've been meaning to stop by and talk to you and whatever. So you shut the mower off and you walk over and talk to them for a while and see what their issues are and then go back to cutting your grass. It's kind of the way it goes.
I'm going to wonder how many of those you get after this podcast.
I don't know. It's
not. Be like, I can do that.
Trust me, it's not an unusual occurrence. It's really not.
Yeah.
It's really not.
So you win that first election in '87 as a trustee, or no?
Yes, I finished.
Okay.
It was a 6-person race, and I finished third.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then were you in office as a trustee until you ran for mayor, or?
Yeah, then I ran again. That was the first 4 years. Second 4 years, Grover had decided not to run for re-election, and Bob Latham ran, and I ran with him and Gary Residori, and I forget who all was there. But anyway, and Vera and I, and we Bob had got elected then to his first term as mayor. And then we ran again and for his second term as mayor. And then before he finished his second term, he was in about 3 years into it. He decided he would, his at the age where he had retired from Bunge. He had worked there, and he was having a little bit of some health issues too. But I think he just decided he had had enough, and he decided to step down a year early. And consequently, then what happens then is one of the trustees has to step up and take over the mayoral position until the next election. And so that's what I did.
That's something that the trustees vote on too, right?
Yes, the trustees decide.
They just don't say, okay, you're in, Paul.
No, the trustees decide.
Yeah.
Who that is and again, and you're and you can do it a couple different ways, but
did you bring it upon yourself to say, "Hey, I'll do it," or was it like, you know what?
Well, we had a conversation with the six of us, and I said, "Well, I'll do it, but if you guys will help," I said, I don't want to do this if there's going to be a bunch of fighting and in plays and all this kind of stuff. I don't want anything to do with that. So if we're all willing to work together, which we all had worked together very well prior to that, and everybody was agreeable to that. So then I took that over, and then but I didn't do the mayor pro temp thing. I just took over the office and asked Rick Fisher to fill in the balance of my trustee, which was about another year and a half or something, which he did, and he's still on the board today and does a great job. And so then he took over as that. So then I had to run again then in about a year.
And so what year was that when you?
08, 09, somewhere in there.
Okay. Yeah. So it's been a long time.
Yeah.
Well, we said 15 years
15
we talked
years.
about. Yeah. I was just curious as to which year it was that you stood up.
It's been 7 elections. I hate going through elections. So I do know that part.
Well, the last election was pretty easy, right? Because didn't you not have a contender?
Yeah, I ran unopposed in that election. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you probably were happy about that, I would think.
Yeah, but then of course I also helped some other people that were running for trustee because I wanted to make sure that they got an opportunity to continue to serve.
Sure. So stepping on and taking those responsibilities, what was going on 15-ish years ago, 15-ish, 20 years ago, when you...
Well, probably the one of the main things that were going on, there was a few of them. Armour Road was still a travesty. It was an unmarked state highway that the state of Illinois owned, and they were basically kind of refusing to really maintain it the way it should have been maintained because they kept wanting Bourbonnais to take the thing over, and wanted Bourbonnais to take the road over, and then they would rebuild it then maybe at some point in time. And it's like, no, I don't think so. It's like they can't do that. Well, it finally got to the point where they pretty much had to do something, and they said, well, if you'll take it over, we'll rebuild the whole thing completely right away, and then you take it over after it's completely rebuilt. It's like, okay, that makes a little more sense. So we had that project going on. We had the interchange, which had started and sputtered, and but
that started all the way back then. The interchange.
The interchange took 18 years. Yes.
Wow.
From start to finish.
I didn't realize that was such a
that really got started with during Grover Brooks' administration, really with the brainstorming with Frank Kaler, who was the village administrator at the time, and Lammy, who was with the county, and Mike Van Mill, who was with the county at the time, and to create another transportation corridor within the county to put together. So, engineering started, and there was phase 1 and phase 2 and things going on like that, but trying to keep that project going because those are federally funded projects. And
we're talking about the interchange at I-57,
sure, right.
Bourbonnais Parkway.
Right.
Did it have anything to do with the Bears?
I don't know, because realistically, I mean, it was at the tail end of when the Bears were still coming here, but really what happened that finally put it over the top was that the engineering had been done and it was pretty well settled and ready to go. And then Congresswoman Debbie Halverson, out of nowhere, all of a sudden was able to get an earmark to fund that interchange, which was nearly $50 million. Because of the fact it was more than just the interchange. It was the putting an interchange in plus the improvements on the roadway between 45 and Route 50 and the railroad track crossing. It was a big project, and she was able to get that through Congress, and then even at that point in time, then it got approved, but then the money got held up. In Springfield, there was some political plays going on there, and finally then it got released, and the project continued on.
But, and why was that so important to build that interchange in Bourbonnais on 57 to add to the two existing? Or was it three existing?
Yeah. I think especially at that time, the amount of growth that was going on in Miantino and the amount of growth that was going on in Bourbonnais, and people could see that, it's at some juncture that's going to just kind of end up moving together.
Yeah, we're going to be kind of like Bradley and Bourbonnais. Yeah, they just intertwine.
And needed another way to get on and off 57 at a different location, especially dealing with commercial traffic and truck traffic and traffic going into Nucor and just general transportation and possibly at some juncture maybe Bourbonnais Parkway continuing on off to the west, heading out almost all the way over to 102. It just made a lot of sense to have that northerly boundary to be there to work in conjunction with the other ones. Otherwise everything else becomes too congested. And I know when it first got built, there was, or even when it was being built, I mean, there was people say, why in the world are we building this in the middle of nowhere and whatever? It's like,
I feel like they're still saying that, some of them.
And it's you got to remember, you don't build those things for right this minute. You build those things for down the road. That interchange, I'm old enough to remember the interchange at 57 when that first went in at Route 50. There was virtually nothing there either, and then, but things grow up around those things, and people want amenities and different businesses and commercial growth. And I think there's definitely some strong interest currently on some industrial growth up there, which is going to involve jobs. So it's just one of those economic enhancements.
Yeah. And I think I know one of the arguments was that the other interchanges really needed, and some of them still need updating, know, and they're building this new interchange, but these other ones really need to be, re-enhanced. And I think that was some people's argument.
Well, and you got to remember the length of time it took for that project to happen. When they initially was talked about doing it, putting together, those interchanges weren't in that condition necessarily then. It was 18 years later that the monies finally came for the thing.
Since we're on that subject, we have currently to this day that's being built is it Road Ranger truck stop, right? Yeah. That's currently being built.
Right.
And then recently there's been talks of a warehouse, right?
There's a group looking at doing a warehousing complex with maybe up to 4 100,000 square foot warehouse segments in there that they would own and lease out. There's some interest there. And there's some interest on the east side of the interchange with another project that we'll see if it happens. That you see a lot of projects come across your desk, and some make it, some don't. And so we'll see. But there's definitely some interest up there, and it's starting to come around to where people are going to be using it more than just for getting on and off the interchange.
Right. Isn't there a hotel that's going there, or maybe that was something that was going to happen?
Well, I think there's been hotel people looking at that, and there's been hotel people look at other portions of Bourbonnais also too. Mm-hmm. So it's it all is economically driven. It interest rates and business climates and what's going on politically and all those things have effect on what's going to go on with construction. So we'll see.
What else do you think of as your time as mayor? The Armour Road and now Latham Drive and.
Well, I mean we've had other projects that have come, and all have been with help from staff and with the trustees. It's not just me, but the Burns Road project when that went in, trying to make that east-west connector with Career Center Road and Route 45, just north of what the High Point subdivision, to try and create a connection over to there. We had 2 schools in between there, between St. Paul Lutheran and the public grade school, and really needed something. So we went ahead and got the engineering done and got it shovel ready. And then all of a sudden there was federal money available for a project that was shovel ready. And we were the only ones that really had something ready to go in the area. And we were fortunate enough to get that, to use that as that transportation enhancement to eventually move the bus facility for the grade schools over to by Liberty School there, which made that all possible because now you've got that east-west connector to 45 and got that bus facility out of the middle of central Bourbonnais and it's always created a lot of traffic issues in the morning and every afternoon with every bus in the whole school district coming in and out of there. And Lord knows there's enough traffic there at the old triangle at 102 and 45.
I was just going to say, speaking of traffic.
Yeah. And getting that out of there was a help. It didn't solve everything, but it was a help. Mm-hmm. And so that was a very good project. And, of course, there's just been all kinds of drainage projects, just, one thing after another. You kind of inherit problems that didn't get resolved by others, or maybe things that didn't get put in quite correctly when they were done the first time. And then after 20 years, things start to deteriorate and it gets even worse. And, you can point fingers all you want, but at the end of the day, you just got to solve the problem.
Yeah.
And that's what I really have tried to do, is just solve the problems and try to do things right the first time. Sometimes it takes a little bit more money to do it right the first time, but it's generally always cheaper than doing it twice. And that's what we try and do.
And, you're bringing up that 102 Convent 45 interchange.
Yeah.
Is some years back, there was talk of building a bridge for pedestrians. Yeah. Is that still a possibility?
We have some plans that are ready to go. If it would really take some federal funding and would take definitely some university involvement in that project. I think for that project to happen, those two things would have to be in the game. Bourbonnais is not in a position to put that up on our own, and it would take some federal transportation pedestrian grants to do that, and then the university would need to have some skin in the game also too, because a lot of it is university students. Not all university students, but a lot of it is university students.
So is that something that's currently being chased?
We keep having some conversations about it, but it's just it's one of those projects that is just it's just tough to get funding for, and there's things in our community, unfortunately, that we don't necessarily qualify for as much as other communities end up qualifying for. One of the issues with that interchange, and IDOT has been very plain about it. It's yes, it has some traffic in the mornings and in the afternoons, but in their words, they've got 100 intersections in their district that have traffic like that. What we haven't had there, fortunately, is fatalities. And
knock on wood, yeah.
Unfortunately, if you want to drive a project at an intersection, you have some fatalities, and all of a sudden your project comes to the top of the list. Of course, what we're trying to do and still trying to do is trying to be proactive before we have fatalities, but we've not been successful yet. We've had a number of students hit there, mostly college students, as they come off the curb to cross 45. But fortunately, because of the speed that the vehicles are at that juncture, they literally just get bumped. A few have actually got to go to emergency room, but nothing with any serious injuries. But and fortunately, no fatalities.
So I guess moving forward, we can talk maybe a little more about present day, which would be the community campus plan that's currently rolling along. Depending on when a person listens to this episode, the campus might be open depending on what year, what month you're listening to this episode. But
it should be. It's on schedule to be done in June of 24, June of next year, and as long as the weather stays like it has been, and construction continues at the pace it has, it'll make it there. They're probably maybe a little ahead of schedule. They had a very good winter as far as working through that. Johnson Downs been doing a great job with them and their subs. They did a great job turning the area around enough to be able to have a Friendship Festival, which went off very smoothly with their help to put the construction site in a usable state, which we explained to them had to happen when we let the bid for it, that the festival was still happening, and you can do anything you want, but when it's festival time, we got to be able to use this place.
I was pretty impressed.
They did a great job.
Yeah.
over and above putting that together. And so now we got kind of clear sailing. Most of the underground work is done, although they're still doing some digging. But work on the stage continues, and the splash pad and some of the rest of the amenities are going to be in there. And it'll be something that'll be an area that the residents in the village could use for years and years to come. It's a place for people to have events at. We very much want to have a lot of musical events there, and some theater, movies in the park. You can do lectures there. I mean, there's just all kinds of things you can do with that stage. The splash pad, obviously, is something that the kids can enjoy throughout the summer. We're getting a portable ice rink synthetic ice rink to put down. It'll probably be in that same area we're thinking to put that, so that could get used. Probably could get used year round, but probably more seasonally. Probably fall into winter.
There won't be skate rentals there per se, will there?
Yes, there will.
Oh, there will. Okay.
As part of the project, we'll start off with 100 pairs and see how that goes with the needs. We'll see. We get pleasantly surprised sometimes with some of the events and things we do. Where that happened was with the Food Truck Fest. The initial one, we had no idea that we'd have the response that we did for that thing, and it was huge and has grown ever since. So we may need to get more skates than that. I'm not sure, but the surface is only so big, so I mean, we can only have so many kids on there at one time.
So, yeah. 100 is probably the max, isn't it?
I would think that's what the group that has does the synthetic ice suggested that for that size, that's about what you need. So, but again, we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see.
So is there anything else that you want people to know about yourself, or just even about Bourbonnais, that you want to make sure to get out there, or any kind of misconceptions or anything?
Well, I caution people to realize that many things that you might see on social media are not necessarily accurate. To be sure you understand the source of what your information you're getting. If you want information, obviously we have Bourbonnais has a web page. Obviously they have that you can go to. You can call Village Hall. You can stop in Village Hall. Actually talk to somebody. In fact, if you call Village Hall during normal hours, you will actually talk to someone. You won't get a machine. And if you got questions or concerns about something, let's talk about it. We're all in this together. It's not government against the constituents. I mean, we're just there to perform a function, to supply goods and services that the public needs at a price they can afford. And at the end of the day, that's what we do. And we try very, very hard to do that. People don't realize we'll sit at committee meetings and fight and argue over an $100 expenditure for 20 minutes that you would think would be, why are you guys wasting time arguing about this? But it's just everybody takes this very personally. And we do try and do all that. And now that you got the naysayers and the doomsayers out there, there's some people that like to be sarcastic and have unusual sense of humor, I guess, as it were, to where they like to be that way. And it's like, you're just being detrimental to the community. If you can't be positive about where you live, then you probably should go live someplace else. And if you really, really, really feel that bad about all this, it's like, things are very good in our area, in the county. And everybody gets doom and gloomy about the state of Illinois. Oh my God, the world's coming to an end. It's like, well, the world's not coming to an end. Hang on, take a deep breath, and let's enjoy where you live. Let's be proud of where you live. And if everybody lives here keeps talking bad about where they live, there's nobody else going to kind of come live here.
No.
And there's a lot of great people here. And the volunteerism, especially with the people in Bourbonnais, just amazes me every year. The Friendship Festival people, all the people on different committees. When we were doing the campus project, getting 3,000 people to give ideas and comments to a project is kind of unheard of. The folks that were doing the study for us and design work, they've done work for some large areas like South Bend and some other much larger communities that never got anywhere that kind of public input on what would you like to see, what do you want, what don't you want, all those kinds of things. And the public really stepped up and did that, and that's where the campus has come from. Really, is what people's asked for.
Yeah.
So it's a great town. It's a great area, and so everybody be happy about what you got going on.
Here's a question for you: were we ever supposed to get Hooters in Bourbonnais, and did Olivet put a? Well, that's I love that. I love that question.
That's one of the craziest rumors, urban legends that float around the community. And,
is that urban legend true? Did Olivet stop Hooters from building?
No, it's never. It's never been true. First of all, because I know a couple of people that looked into getting a Hooters franchise, and to be honest with you, they don't issue any franchises in the state of Illinois. Only certain markets do they issue franchises. Otherwise, they're all corporate buildings. So you couldn't get one if you wanted to. Number two, the biggest fallacy, and of course you hear those spouted as gospel at some of the local watering holes, is that the university decides on every liquor license that goes on in the village of Bourbonnais. And I can honestly say I've been involved with the board for 25 years. I have never had one conversation about alcohol and anybody involving the university, ever. So that's not true. Are we trying to be? Are we a little conservative about liquor licenses in the community? Yeah, I don't know that we need a zillion bars all over town necessarily. We did recently just kind of open some things up with to have the gas stations to be able to do packaged liquor, which they were never able to do in the past, and it just seemed like it had run its course. Every other community in the county does that, and you have multiple locations that are they have a location in Bourbonnais they can't sell, and all their locations outside of Bourbonnais can sell, and it's hard for business. And we're just trying to even the playing field for those businesses. I don't know that much more is going to get sold. I think that business is just going to get spread out, to be perfectly honest with you. But those opportunities will be there, and that's kind of where that's at. So, yeah, Hooters was never in the mix.
Anything else, Mayor Schore?
I'm good.
No? All right. Thanks. Well, thank you again for doing this.
Thanks for being here.